And you're welcome back. It is not enough to plant trees, tackle illegal mining, deforestation, and mark out forest belts in every city across the country. Well, that's the advice from the German ambassador, Daniel Krul, to the government of Ghana as the country marks the Green Ghana nationwide tree planting exercise today. Ghana is seeking to reverse a possible sanction flowing from the new European Union law on deforestation, which will make it impossible for cocoa to be sold in the European market unless the supplier certifies that the produce does not come from a deforested land. However, given Ghana's heightened levels of illegal mining activities, there are fears that the country and the main cash crop that we have, cocoa, may be heavily impacted. Speaking after a tree planting exercise at the German Embassy Gardens earlier today, Daniel Krul, the ambassador, says illegal mining should not be allowed to prevail in the country, as he is asking the government of Ghana to live up to expectation in tackling the menace.
Ghana Green Day, a very important initiative with regard to forestry. We are happy here to welcome you at the German Embassy in Accra. We decided to follow the call of the President, who encouraged all missions present here in this beautiful country of Ghana to join him and to the country in planting a tree on Ghana Green Day 2023. So we are very happy here to join this very important initiative. It's important in the context of climate change, which is affecting Africa and all continents around the world, and it is becoming a bigger challenge every day. We all know that Africa contributed rather little to this very tremendous phenomenon, but at the same time the impact of climate change is very heavy. But there are also ways we here in living on the African continent can contribute to fight the climate change, and planting tree is one small step, and we need all steps possible. Of course, there's planting trees and there's also deforestation. We also need to join forces in fighting deforestation in the country and to preserve the natural reserves of any country. In this context, I'm very happy that a very eminent person of this country accepted my invitation to join me here today. And I'm very happy that Professor Frimpong Boateng, a known fighter for environmental protection in this country, is joining me here today. And there's another reason I'm very happy that Professor Frimpong Boateng is here with us today. And that is because I believe strongly that he is a very, very important role model for all young Ghanaians. The other day I was at Kumasi at KNUST University, and I was asked, whom can you think of when you would like to suggest a role model for Ghanaians? And I think Professor Frimpong Boateng is certainly one of them. And the reason why I do think that is because all his achievements in his lifetime were merit-based and based on his own competences and willingness. So it's about being ambitious and work hard to make your ambitions come true and reality. And with this, I would like to encourage all Ghanaians to follow that example. And there's another reason, and that is the fact that Professor Frimpong Boateng, after studying and working, researching in Germany, decided to come back to Ghana and to serve his country. And that is such an important element to what we call the brain circulation. Now, these days, we are living in a global world, and it's about circulating the brains all around the globe. And this can be very, very beneficial to Ghana. So I again would like to invite all young, ambitious Ghanaians to follow this example and reach out and aim high. The challenges of climate change are putting a lot of pressure on all countries, on all people, on all governments around the world. And I'm not hiding the fact that even though Germany has very ambitious objectives and aims, we are by no means the ones who are always reaching at the objectives we have set ourselves. So I think it is important to set ambitious aims and objectives, but that also might include the possibility of failure. But at least we have to try hard. Time is running short for all of us on this beautiful planet. As I said, we have challenges in Europe. Europe has been one of the major contributors to the emissions, of course with others. So we have to of course, take the largest burden. So in this context, there are of course also very many challenges in Ghana. We are offering our support in the framework of our development cooperation, and we hope that Ghana will live up to its own objectives. You mentioned the EU regulations on forestry and deforestation. That's what I heard is being discussed a lot in the cocoa sector, and I understand there are some areas that might be affected and might to have to find an answer to that. But I mean that's the idea of this regulation, to try to have an impact on the deforestation, which we need to stop. I mean, it's not enough to plant trees. We need both. We need planting trees, identifying areas for forestry, not only on the countryside, but also in the urban areas, very, very important for recreational areas, as mentioned by Prof earlier. And so we need these designated areas for forestation, and we need this action against deforestation. And I hope this government will live up to its own aims in this regard. You said it is illegal mining, so if it's illegal, then it shouldn't take place. So in a country that is based on rule like Ghana, then illegal activities should be stopped.
Well, so as we mark the Green Ghana Day, the German government has decided to honor former chair of the Inter-Ministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining, Professor Frimpong Boateng, for his dedication towards tackling climate change. The former government appointee who today joined the Germans for a ceremonial tree planting exercise at the ambassador's residence added his voice to the need for an end to the issues of deforestation and the menace of illegal mining.
As you know, I'm very fascinated about the environmental situation in Germany. And when you invited me, I reminded you about the things that I learned or saw. In every German city, you find a belt of forest linking various suburbs of the city. For example, in Germany, you could walk from, say, Adabraka to the central business district, across to Osu or somewhere, all through forests that have been laid in every city. So everywhere is cool and is very commendable. You find young and old cycling, jogging, and at times walking off into some restaurants that are established in these forest areas. And so this is something that I wish that we could do in Ghana, planting trees, maintaining our forests, and then leaving gardens in our towns and our cities so that people could go there for recreation and for health reasons. Sometimes in Ghana, if a forest or a green area is left, they say, oh, why are you wasting the land? We should go and build there. No, it's not a waste. Because I always say that the trees are our pharmacy. the plants give us the drugs that we use. 25% of all drugs we use in the hospitals are plant-based, are from plants. At the same time, the trees give us the oxygen we breathe, and then they take the carbon dioxide that we breathe out. So in a way, the trees are our lungs. And again, most of the food that we eat are from plants and trees. So the trees are our supermarket. So anytime we are planting a tree, we know we are establishing a supermarket, a pharmacy, or our lungs. A question, whether Ghana is going to be sanctioned by the international community for our failure to meet the targets. I'm not afraid of sanctions from our partners. But the difficulties that we are going to have ourselves, when we destroy our water bodies, we destroy the forest, we are no longer able to use the water, we are losing our biodiversity, people will be getting sick from pollution. Those things alone will be enough sanctions on us. And these are the things that we have to stop so that we don't sanction ourselves with sanctions that will find it very difficult to meet, to meet and solve. So let's not be afraid of sanctions from human beings, but the sanctions that we impose on ourselves because of the wrong things that we do. So thank you very much for that question. Very appropriate.
And of course, as we mark the Green Ghana Day, we understand the president is making a statement giving an assurance that his government will tackle the challenge at hand. But I want to bring in now Environmental Conservation Group, the group called the Eco-Conscious Citizens, who are boycotting the Green Ghana Day today for reasons the group points to as government's lack of commitment towards ensuring that we keep up the support for our forest reserves across the country. Awolasewa, thank you for joining us. She's the coordinator for the group. You've been monitoring government's attempt to plant, I guess it's 5 million trees today, just to shore up the numbers that were added a couple of, years back. Looking at what's happening today, are you certain that, first of all, government will meet the target of planting some 5 million more trees?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Our focus today is looking at what we really want to achieve. We have existing forests. Thank you very much for bringing in Professor Frimpong Boateng, yes, the German ambassador. They said it all. We have our existing trees. We know there's deforestation. So the idea is to increase the number of trees. If we're really serious in doing that, why would we have the EI, which declassifies parts of Achimota Forest, and also a very perverse legislation, which could make it possible to mine in even globally significant biodiversity areas. So long as these laws that are contributing to deforestation are not revoked, the whole exercise of planting trees is like just the plane to the gallery. There's no serious commitment about it, and we will not be part of anything that, frankly, is a waste of our time.
We'll talk about the reason why you're boycotting the Green Ghana Day today, but initially I was talking about 5 million trees that government intends to plant. Actually, it's much more higher than that number, 10 million trees, we understand. The success rate last year, according to the Deputy Minister, is the fact that 70% of the seedlings, made it. So you were pointing out the other time that the seedlings, some of them did not make it. Goats were munching on some of these seedlings. But government is very certain that 70% of them succeeded. Hence the need to show up the numbers to 10 million this time round. It's good news, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what information they have. All I can point out is to what I saw and what was reported to me. For example, the trees that were not fenced and that, yes, goats were munching on. It was a report we received. And I personally went to a local assembly and I saw some trees that had withered. So I'm not saying that I have all the information, but this is what government tells us. So be it.
I see. Professor Frimpong Boateng joining the German ambassador to make that clarion call for us to have forest belts. You are the experts in this field. What's the advantage to this of having a green belt in every city? Because, for instance, Professor Boateng was talking about the fact that that's what you find in Germany, and he wants us to implement that as well. What's the significance, by the way?
Well, I mean, I think he said it all. We know the importance of green belts. We've talked about our lungs. We talked about pure air for us to breathe. We also know that, trees also help with what shall I say, with floods. Mm-hmm. And then we also talked about the pharmacy that they provide because of the trees, the barks. They could be used for so many different health products. But at the heart of the matter is that what he's saying happens in Germany. It happens in civilized countries. Even in Ghana, you're supposed to have a park at every settlement. You should have one at Cantonment, one at Nima, one at Laboni. If you look at the original plans of Ghana, that's what we had. But over the years, we've just built on all our parks. And in fact, had it not been for our intervention, you would not have parks and gardens. The Ministry of Local Government had wanted to build a multi-story office building on parks and gardens land. And thankfully, eco-conscious citizens and partners and public-spirited Ghanaians were able to put an end to this since parks and gardens is still there. So there again, we look at commitments, which does not seem to be there.
I see. But then that's why government is shoring up the numbers by planting more trees on Green Ghana Day. And yet you find eco-conscious groups such as yours not participating in the exercise. It's not patriotic, is it?
Well, I think it's not patriotic to engage in exercises which are not backed by any commitment. What would we say is that we believe in planting trees. We can plant trees every day. And we've always said that Green Ghana is an excellent initiative. All we are saying is that it's something that should be all year round, the commitment. On a particular day or days, you can plant trees, and that's a laudable thing to do. But it must be followed by commitment. Because as I keep on saying, you can't with one hand be showing the public face of planting trees, and then with the other hand, perverse laws are passed which are destroying our forest reserves and making it possible to mine in forest reserves. How committed are you? So in fact, it's actually unpatriotic to engage in activities that give the wrong impression that you're interested in climate change, you're interested in planting trees, when on the other hand, you are supervising the destruction of our forest reserves.
And the president, but the president is making a statement on that. He's assuring that he'll tackle illegal mining head on. Not the first time he's making the promise, though. Well,
you see, let's be very let's be very frank here. If you want to tackle, you see, it's not just illegal mining. Some of it is not even illegal. It's what I would call environmental terrorism. It's taking place and it's destroying our landscape. But the government itself, through its actions, I can say is also involved. If you have a government that is supervising the declassification of Achimota Forest Reserve, you have a government that has passed LI, let me get it straight for you, LI 2462, which is making it possible to mine in our forest reserves, which is even saying that in Section 3.2, that you can mine in a globally significant biodiversity area if the government, the president gives approval in writing and believes it's in the national interest. How can this be? So I'm saying that the planting of trees is not something that appears to be backed by any commitment. It's something we're just going through on a particular day, and then it's business as usual. Let's go on destroying our forest reserves. We cannot accept this. And this is why we are saying that we are still planting trees. We don't have to wait for 9th June to plant trees. But we are saying that if the government is serious, then the LI 2462 should be rescinded. It's a perverse law, and it's going to destroy our forest reserves.
And even at the international level, we're not making progress in contributing to the UN SDGs, which is just 7 years away from meeting the agenda. But beyond that as well, there's also, on the other hand, the issue about making our main cash crop, cocoa, to enter the EU markets. The new law on deforestation will make it tough for us, isn't it? The fact that we have heightened levels of illegal mining. Do you feel that we can surmount these challenges?
Well, if we begin a serious fight, of course we can. If we begin a serious fight yesterday, of course we can. The challenge is that I'm not quite sure there's any fights going on. I'm not sure there's any fight going on. We saw what happened with Akonta mining. The directors are still walking free. It's rather Professor Frimpong Boateng, the irony of it all, who was arrested and thankfully bailed. The person who has shown us what is going on is rather the person who has been.
And sorry for cutting in. And sorry for cutting in on that point. But I mean, you're not the only one making the point. The German ambassador also pointing out that, quote, Professor Boateng should be a role model when it comes to the fight against illegal mining. Are you not, and by extension, I'm talking about you, the German ambassador, those in CSO, are you not jumping to the defense of someone who should be open to investigation?
We're not jumping to anybody's defense. I mean, what he's done in the past, I think he's a role model, even setting up the cardiothoracic center. He could have stayed in Germany, or he could just have come and built apartment blocks. But he thought of the nation and he built a cardiothoracic center. I cannot speak for anything else, but I can say that for me, he's a role model. By all means, the government should conduct it, or whoever is conducting the investigation should carry on. But I'm saying that it's very, very strange that all this time, the documentary that Joy News did, I always get the title wrong, but I believe
Distraction for Gold.
Distraction for Gold.
Yes.
Have there been any arrests? So let's ask ourselves why the good professor was arrested. But by all means, conduct your investigations, and the truth has a way of coming out in the long run.
Okay. And so the future of Green Ghana, we scrap it or we review?
Well, we've said that Green Ghana itself is a brilliant initiative. But what we are saying is that let's be honest, let's be transparent. Let's rescind LI 2462, which is making it possible to mine in our forest reserves. If you are greening Ghana, and let's be clear, our forest reserves are forests that have been there before you and I were born, before our parents were born, have been there for decades. When we plant a tree today, how long is it going to take to reach maturity? So let's be serious. We are supposed to be adding to our trees, not destroying the existing forest reserves we have. And believe you me, if we don't rescind this law, we'll have a more serious situation than we have now. When we see the forests being devastated, it may not just be the so-called illegal miners. It may be people who actually have licenses. Information reaching us is that quite a number of organizations have licenses to mine in forest reserves as we speak. So when you're busy planting trees, it's like a gimmick. I'm sorry to use that word, but it's like a gimmick. There doesn't appear to be any commitment. And let me be very, very clear. When we look at mining, it's a false accounting when we say that we're making 1.2 billion. Because if we put that vis-a-vis the health impacts that we are having, kidney disease, birth defects, deaths, and so on and so forth, we look at the pharmacies we are destroying, we look at the forest, which is supposed to purify our air, the lungs we are removing. What benefit is it at all, apart from the few individuals who might be benefiting? But as a nation, the cocoa farmers whose farms are being destroyed for when mining licenses are being given, what benefit is it to them? So what I'm saying is that we have to rethink of the forest as an asset, not just as a place where you can get timber or minerals. It's an asset. Just a carbon sink can bring in money. Tourism, coming to see the beautiful forest. It's a health environment where you sit in the forest and meditate. And those of us who claim to be Christians, ask yourselves why God puts us in the Garden of Eden and not in the Garden of Concrete. Because he knows the benefits to our well-being of our forests and green places. Okay,
I will answer as coordinator of the Eco-Conscious Citizens. Thank you for your time. We're still on Green Ghana because the environmental conservation organization Arocha Ghana is also pushing for government to revoke the Environmental Protection Regulation 2023 LI 2462, which enables the president to allow mining in globally significant biodiversity areas. Deputy National Director of Arocha Ghana, Darryl Bosso, says the new LI doesn't specify the exact percentage of land that can be leased to small-scale miners, a gap which they feel is problematic.
As we speak, we have environmental protection, mining in forest reserves. There is no limitations. Now, this one is all forest reserves. While the 2018, so the LI in mining in production forest reserves was updated somehow in 2018. And while the 2018 LI or guideline that preceded the LI allowed a maximum of 2% of all production areas of forest reserves to be mined, the new regulation have have no such restriction. So the previous guideline on environmental guidelines in production forest reserves only allowed for 2% of all existing production forest reserves to be mined. The current LI that has been passed, 2462, has no restrictions as to the size of an area of a forest that can be mined. Consequently, after the LI was passed, mining permits covering large portions of forest reserves have been granted, including Nkrabia Forest Reserve, Boyntano Forest Reserve, Anwiaso East and Tano Anwia Forest Reserves. Now, the 2018 environmental guidelines excluded globally significant biodiversity areas, what we call GSBAs, such as Tano Ofin and Atiwa Forest, from any mining or exploration. Under the new LI, however, the president can actually approve mining in these uniquely critical areas if it is, as they say, is in the national interest.
Well, meanwhile, the National Director of Youth Alliance for Green Ghana, Kenneth Ejo, is calling on government to sanction persons engaging in illegal mining activities. He explained that Ghanaians will not benefit from the Green Ghana initiative if government fails to sanction persons destroying the environment.
As we commemorate Green Ghana Day today and go out to plant 10 million trees, we ask, as the youth of this country, how will the good people of Ghana benefit from the Green Ghana project if we continue to destroy existing forests and green spaces? As the younger generation, in trust for whom our environment and resources are held by the president and our leaders, we demand immediate action from the government to put an end to this environmental catastrophe. One, we call on the government to enforce the laws, the many laws that have been enacted that regulate mining activities in the country, and crack the whip on those who flout them, even such persons within the government, in demonstration of this government's real commitment to greening Ghana beyond the Green Ghana Day project.
The fight is on. I want to bring in Director of Arucha Ghana, Darryl Bosu, who's joining us via Zoom now. Thank you, sir, for your time. The target is 10 million trees, and yet we're having that challenge of deforestation also going on. A couple of minutes ago, we're just playing that sound from the German embassy, together with the Professor Frimpong Boateng, who was then chairing the Inter-Ministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining. It appears that there are still challenges when it comes to our fight. How worried are you as groups in the eco-conscious space?
Good afternoon, Blessed, and thank you for having me. I believe that Awolabi said a lot of things, and I think we all need to really reflect as a country where we want to go. As you have said, and also has been reiterated by Awolabi, the challenge is that we really do not see the government making this agenda one that it believes in by itself. Because if we really did, you will see the Green Ghana agenda reflected in every fiber of our being as a nation. It was started 3 years ago. And if you look at what has happened 3 years ago, looking at how our forest reserves, how 37 or so forest reserves were given out to mining companies to have access for prospecting. And going in, we saw that they didn't do prospecting, they actually went to mine, and government has not taken any action to bring these companies to book. And every year we say we are planting trees. It casts a shadow on really how committed government is in this campaign. Now, one other thing that is a bit more interesting is also the fact that...
Hello, Darryl. We'll definitely get to hear from Darrell because there are a number of issues to tackle. In fact, the new LI, which the coalition of civil society groups are seeking to challenge, which has got to do with the law that permits the president to mine in areas deemed to be forest reserves. They are against that. Darrell, we lost you briefly. If you could just take that point for us again.
Yes, I was going to say that last year in around November, December, some of us were in Egypt attending COP27, all with a goal to try and show up international and national level action to preserve our forest reserves, to also take action on climate change. Again, in December, the EPA bosses and some members of government formed a delegation that went to Montreal to also contribute to global biodiversity framework. What is sad is that while we were out there projecting ourselves for engaging in climate action and biodiversity conservation, the same period our government had passed an act that was enabling government to take charge or to have access to forest reserves in this country, contrary to previously existing guidelines that actually gave significant protection to certain categories of forest reserves in this country. And that in itself tells you that the government has no intention to really ensure that Green Ghana becomes a mainstay in the fiber of our society.
Yeah, but when you say that, really anytime you make that point, Darrell, anytime you make that point, government challenges you to the effect that, well, we keep planting more trees. The last batch that was done, 70% of the trees survived. Now we're scaling up to 10 million trees. So why blame government then?
Well, Blessed, I think the best policy any country can have, and which has also been backed by science, is that you do not destroy existing forests and tell us that you are planting new trees. I will not make the point. If you take into consideration how long it is going to take for these trees to grow, and we should also bear in mind that the kind of trees we are even planting is not more or less, I'll say, replicating the kind of tree species we are destroying in the highly diverse forest ecosystems that we have in this country. There is no way you can compare forest that is lost to planted forest as we are doing now. So let us not get that confused with the fact that we can plant plantations, plant a few horticultural trees along a street, and think that we are planting forest. The two cannot be compared with each other ever. And that is where we are saying that the government is making a mistake if they can go on agenda to destroy forest reserve through active policies like extractive mining and laws like LI 2462, and then come out and say we are planting trees, 10 million trees or 20. You can do all of that. But if you destroy existing forests, the exercise is in futility. And that's one point that needs to be made clear. Government can always have their way by saying, oh, we had 70% survival rate and all of that. But the question is, how does that constitute a forest as we are now destroying? So that is a big question we all need to ask ourselves. There is no way we can replace our several years old forest reserves with trees that we are planting now. If even let's just go around and check the height and also the constitution of these trees that have been planted. You know that it doesn't come close to a forest, or it doesn't come close, even a small patch of forest that we can say is going to turn into a forest. So this is the kind of distinction we need to have when we are talking about growing and protecting our forest reserve. Planting forests or putting together plantations does not constitute planting or securing forest. The two are totally different.
Well, I guess you're making this point with passion because you're environmentalists, you're conservation groups, and so you believe that the environment has to be protected. But if you're confronted as a politician or as a leader with the need to develop your nation as well, you know that you certainly cannot do that without your natural or mineral resources. What's the alternative for government?
If political decisions do not benefit the people in the long run, then it becomes parochial and just serves the interest of the politicians whose term ends in either 4 years or 8 years. A nation's lifespan goes way beyond 4 years or 8 years of a political entity or political party that is governing at any point in time. And that is why for very civilized countries or certain developed countries, they have development plans that outlast even 50 years, outlast governments who come in 4 years or 8 years term. And that's why we have said, if you make any decision today that puts the future of other generations at risk, then that decision has nowhere to be called in the interest of the state or in the interest of the people. We should also bear in mind that these politicians are serving the interest of Ghanaians and of citizens. They did not come to serve themselves. So if they come and they are making laws or policies that only seem to serve their interests, then they really do not know why they've been elected. And this is where, as citizens, we need to call them to order. So the issue of whether they are politicians or not, they need to first of all consider the service to the state, a service to the citizens, before they look at their own interest in this sense.
For now, even as we speak, the LI 2462 remains a statute. What more are we likely to see in opposition to this very legislative piece that you've been fighting against?
I think right now CSOs are mobilizing ourselves. Actually, we've mobilized ourselves. We've made some inquiries at the various agencies, invoking the RTI to know how this law came to pass, which institutions participated, what were the objections, what really constituted the spirit behind the airline as test. And we are going to use that to challenge that as far as we can, even if it means that taking this case to court to make sure that the government does the right thing. If a law is not in the interest of the state or in the interest of the people, that law is bad law, and the citizen must take every step to revoke it or get it amended. And that is what we intend to do.
Okay, we'll wait to see what then happens. Thanks for spending some time with us.
It's a pleasure.
Daryl Bosso with Arochat Ghana, joining this whole conversation on the Green Ghana Day. Don't forget that there's a lot happening in Parliament as we speak, where the Speaker of the House, Alban Kingsford Bagbin, is warning that if immediate steps are not taken to reclaim lost forest cover, the country could face serious environmental challenges. The Speaker has been rallying Ghanaians to involve themselves in the project and help save the environment. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kwekwa Sante reports from the House.
The Speaker led leadership and staff of Parliament to plant 300 trees within the precinct of Parliament and official residences. The Speaker says if urgent action is not taken to reclaim Ghana's lost forest cover, the country could be in serious danger of environmental catastrophe.
Trees and forests purify the air we breathe, filter harmful particles and pollutants, and ensure the well-being of our citizens, especially those in urban areas where air pollution is very, very high. And I'm sure that you've seen on TV many times that the air in Accra is among the highest in the world. It's not the highest, but among the highest. They say the air pollution in Accra is so bad that we need to act, and act quickly. Trees and forests serve as nature's guardians, regulating water flow, mitigating the risk of flooding, and preserving our precious water bodies. Trees also provide shelter and habitat for countless species, sustaining biodiversity and preserving the delicate balance of our ecosystems. What is more, they have a critical role in combating climate change as they sequester carbon and contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions.
The minority in Parliament, however, says government must ensure that the Green Ghana project does not become an avenue to enrich a few. According to Deputy Ranking Member on the Lands and Forestry Committee, Alassane Sohini, such programs in the past have been used to siphon money from the state.
Initiatives such as this, good as they are intended, do not fall victim of corruption or do not become a victim of corruption. It does not become an establishment that is used to siphon money from the taxpayer. Mr. Speaker, and this is important because climate finance has to be, optimized.
Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abujinapo says no such corruption will happen under his watch. He also described the 2 previous editions of the Green Ghana Day as a huge success.
The 2021 planting, we have 80% plus success rate. And the 2022, we have 70% plus success rate.
In all, 10 million trees will be planted for this year's Green Ghana Day, which the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is leading. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
So let's get to it then, because President Akufo-Addo says his government remains committed to the protection of the environment and will continue to explore all avenues in ensuring that the Green Ghana project achieves its purpose. The President, who was speaking at this year's Green Ghana Day tree planting exercise at the University of Ghana, has therefore called on every Ghanaian to plant a seedling as a contribution towards the 10 million per day target by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources.
We're living in a time of unprecedented global environmental challenges that threaten our existence and the fate of our planet. The climate crisis is affecting our health, our livelihoods, our security, and our future, and is the major obstacle to sustainable development. In addition to this, anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions continue to be the major driver of this crisis. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, for example, reports that human activities have emitted some 2.4 trillion tons of carbon dioxide since the pre-industrial era, and half of that amount remains in the atmosphere till this very day. This means that we have already exceeded the safe level of carbon dioxide concentration that will limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the target set by the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. The United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, also estimates that global greenhouse gas emissions need to fall by 7.6% annually between 2020 and 2030 to limit the warming of our atmosphere to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The consequences of this are already being felt across the globe. According to the World Meteorological Organization, the year 2020 was one of the 3 warmest years on record since we began measuring meaningfully temperature on our planet. And the World Bank projects that at this current rate, I encourage all students across the country to participate fully in this national exercise and contribute their share to the fight against climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, my government remains fully committed to protecting our environment and our people and contributing to global efforts to halt climate change. Government will therefore continue to explore all avenues to enhance our forest cover through afforestation and reforestation programs and protect our natural resources through community-based management and conservation initiatives. Today, your contribution is to step out, take a seedling, plant it, and make sure it grows. I encourage each and every one of you, my fellow Ghanaians, and indeed all persons living in Ghana, young and old, men and women, urban and rural, to join me on this historic day in this national tree planting exercise. We're planting for ourselves, our children, our country, and our planet. Together, let us go planting 10 million trees and nurture them to maturity.
And this is a nationwide exercise, so let's head to the Upper East region, where the Upper West Regional Minister, I should say, Dr. Hafiz bin Salih, has urged the youth to embrace the environmental practices, including planting of trees and nurturing them in the country's collective efforts to combat the issue of climate change. A total of some 300,000 trees are expected to be planted in the region as part of the Green Ghana Day celebration. Upper West Regional correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
This year's commemoration of the Green Ghana Day in the Upper West region was held at the forecourt of the Upper West Regional Hospital. Out of the 10 million trees expected to be planted countrywide, 300,000 of them are to be planted in the Upper West region. Leading the charge is the Upper West Regional Minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Salih, and accompanied by some members of the Regional Security Council, representatives of the Water Overlord, and heads of the centralized departments. Also present at the function were personnel from some selected security agencies and learners from some basic schools in the Wa municipality. Upper West Regional Minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Salih, noted that agriculture is the mainstay of the people in the region, and therefore their livelihoods depends on the environment. He therefore lauded the Green Ghana initiative of President Akufo-Addo, which he stated that will be of enormous benefit to the people of the region due to its proximity to the desert. Dr. bin Salih commended some chiefs in the region for taking giant steps to protect the environment, including the ban on the commercial production of charcoal in their respective communities.
I wish to urge the good people of the Upper West region, particularly women and the youth, to embrace sound environmental practices, including passion to plant and nurture trees in our collective efforts to sustain the environment for the good of our generations and generations after us. Mention can be made of the recent announcement of the ban on the production of charcoal in commercial quantities by the paramount chief of the Polymer traditional area of the Sisala West District, Koro Usman Nampa II, during the celebration of the 2023 edition of the Gangawi Festival. I highly commend him and all others for their bold initiative taken to protect our environment, and assure him of the government's support to enforce the ban.
Using the United Nations Convention report to combat desertification, Dr. bin Salih revealed that 1/3 of the country's land area is affected by desertification. In the case of the Upper West region, it is worse due to its proximity to the Sahara Desert.
This poses a major threat to food and energy security. It is estimated in the same report that about 69% of the total land surface area is prone to severe soil erosion. Against this backdrop, the government of His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo took drastic and pragmatic measures, including the ban on illegal mining, popularly called Galamsey.
Medical Director of the Upper West Regional Hospital, Dr. Robert Amisie, commended the government for the initiative, disclosing that a greater number of the trees planted last year at the hospital had survived.
We were blessed as a hospital to receive 950 trees planted to mark an occasion exactly like this 1 year ago. If you look around, many of the trees have survived. I can say with a lot of happiness that over 80% of the trees have survived. Even though the trees have not grown fully, they have added to the beauty of our edifice.
Upper West Regional Manager of the Forestry Commission, Govt, appealed to the participants not to turn their backs on the trees planted, but nurture them to grow.
Let us also be reminded that tree planting is an event. It is a process. So after today, let us continue to care for the trees we plant, ensuring that they are well nurtured and become well established.
Reporting for the news, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
And back here in the studio, we are taking a break on The Pulse. We will return with some more stories. Please stay with us.